Well, this week, millions of people across the U.S. are facing some dangerously hot and humid conditions, including us.
Yeah, that does include Indiana, certainly. It's the most widespread heat wave of the summer so far, really the first for us. Major cities, including Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis, Dallas, and Nashville, could see those temperatures climb to their highest levels yet this year. And Lindsay, you kind of pointed out earlier that this isn't unusual for us.
Yeah.
We always get this hot, but a little bit early and kind of the first wave of it.
Yeah, it's just kind of summer in the Midwest. So, grab your water bottle if you're out and about doing anything, maybe exercise early in the morning as opposed to later in the day this week.
Yes, and I know a lot of folks who work outside, like construction crews, they try to redo their schedules so that they are working more so when the sun's down and not during the peak heating, because we're going to have heat advisories that will be active between noon and 8, which is the hottest stretch of the day. And that starts today, goes all the way through Thursday, at least as of right now. That could always change. And I did want to point out the difference of central Indiana versus northern Indiana, because that heat advisory criteria is a little different depending on how normal those kind of temperatures are for certain areas. So for central Indiana, whenever we have a maximum heat index that will approach 105, that would put us in that heat advisory criteria. However, for northern Indiana, you see in that orange highlight, the maximum heat index would only need to be 100 to be in that advisory criteria. So that's why we've got the advisory here locally. But because we are anticipating that heat index to climb up to 105, even for northern Indiana, that's why the office there, the National Weather Service office, issued that extreme heat warning. So that's the difference. The criteria just a little bit different given the seasonal averages and the normals for different parts of the state. Outside right now, we are watching that temperature hold steady in the mid 70s. Now, usually at this part of the day, we typically don't see a big difference between the actual air temperature versus that feels like temperature. Once the sun comes up, we start to really factor in that moisture content to the air. And at that point, we'll really start to see that difference between the air temperature and what our maximum heat index will be for today. Another one of those hazy, hot and humid days as we get our week started. Temperatures approaching the low 90s for highs. We'll forecast a high right around 92. Southwest wind in play for today. Across central Indiana, Richmond is headed back to 90. We've got 91 for your forecast high up in Muncie. But as we go through the next few hours, you're going to notice, especially as we get into this afternoon, that maximum feels like temperature approaching 100, could be as high as 105 later on today. And we're going to keep these numbers elevated. In fact, I think tomorrow is going to be a little hotter as compared to today even. We are forecasting maximum heat index values up to 105, a little bit more widespread, maybe a few spots from Lafayette over to places like Terre Haute and Greencastle that see even higher heat indices approaching 105 or higher tomorrow. Air temperatures will also be a couple degrees hotter as well, as we are forecasting a high up to 94. Another dry day, hazy, hot and humid. 94 for your high in Indy tomorrow, 93 in Bloomington, and 95 down in Bloomington. Now, this heat dome, it's going to stay pretty stagnant over the southeastern U.S. for the next several days, which is why we're seeing rinse and repeat. The heat advisory in effect all the way through Thursday. But as we fast forward to Friday, you'll notice this will start to shift a little farther off to the east. That's going to allow our upper level wind flow pattern and our jet stream overhead to start to adjust. So we're going to bring in a little bit more of an unsettled pattern here, introducing some scattered storm chances back into the forecast for Friday into the holiday weekend. Now, it's not going to be an all-day washout any day, just kind of those typical summertime pop-up thunderstorms, but that will limit our high temperature by at least a few degrees, with highs falling back to the low 90s.